Osiris.
Let's go. We're here. We're back.
Let's go.
Another great show. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
We're really good at this intro thing, you know?
Hello.
Hey, guys. What on earth is going on?
Greetings.
Really excited about last night's show, man. What a really awesome thing. And especially for like all the people that RJ brought to their first Goose show. They got all kinds of extra stuff with it.
They did. It's true. It's true. It was wild. It was a wild show. It was interesting. There was like some, I don't know. We should talk about it because I want to get everyone's perspectives who wasn't there, who were like the people who weren't there. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, talk us through the, like, you know, getting to the show, the venue, the vibe.
I mean, you know, this is like now this is my second show on this tour. I guess they're all the same, which is like you kind of like pull into a parking lot and then you walk into the venue. It's like there's like no like, you know, there's no like waiting in long lines and dealing with like complicated parking situations. You just like drive into a college hockey or basketball arena and then you walk in and you're like there, and it's like simple.
This is the jam band experience, you know, like minor league hockey arenas in the Northeast.
Yeah, totally.
This is it. This has been, you know, that's been a thing that, you know, the guys on 36 from the Vault talked about a lot throughout that podcast. But it's jam bands are destined for Northeast minor league hockey.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to get in there. I like the GA thing. You know, it's like it's stressful with Fish because it's always sold out, and like, you know, at Dick's or Hampton, it's going to be like a pain. And like at these shows, it's just been like, it was just chill. Like, you know, we had a big group and it was super cold and super windy. So we did not go into like any exploration of anything. We just went straight into the venue, and it was great. The getting in there was easy and simple. And I think Jonathan, who I was with all night, I think he's going to join us soon when he finishes his work job meeting. But
real job.
Yeah. So yeah, the one funny thing is that the bathroom lines were fine. The beer lines were extremely long the entire time, and partially, I think one of the other venues did this. I heard they only sold cans, and then you have to pour each can into a plastic cup before they give them to you. So like, it's like these college
really
kids,
inefficient,
like very slowly pouring a beer in a cup, and then like a second time, and then you're like, dude, you got to be kidding me? It's like twice the waste, and just really hard. So that was the only thing, but it was great getting in. I love these kinds of venues, bigger than Moon Township, but still like totally awesome.
It's a similar experience at Lowell where like Lowell was like hot too, and like all I wanted was a water, and like I was basically standing in this line and like watching them pour beers into cups, and
Lowell
it was
also
excruciating.
Didn't Lowell also stop selling beer at like 10:30?
I don't know. I probably got my last beer like right before the Goose set.
That's fair.
At separate.
I just noticed, but
they sold out. They ran out of beer last night.
Wow, they weren't prepared.
We went back during the tab set to get another beer, and instead we each got a Mike's Hard Lemonade, which is like kind of exactly what we want, and it was just so good. It was warm too. It was like drinking warm lemonade. I mean, couldn't have planned it better.
It's almost as bad as a hard kombucha.
Neil's taken inspiration from me and has been diving into the world of hard kombucha.
I tried one last night for the first time. It wasn't bad, but
it's kind of like it's a little bit sour, right?
Yeah.
It hit him harder than I expected.
They did hit me harder than I expected. But the funny thing about this run, though, is every venue they go to, they're just really putting them to the test, and then you like get to see like how well prepared these venues are.
Yeah,
or like what's about to go down. Like Glens Falls, not prepared at all, right? Like people waited in line for quite a long time to get in. A lot of people missed the first two songs. Sounds like this venue was really nice and like got in really quick.
Yeah, I mean, partially
except for running out of beer.
Yeah,
except for running out of beer. But it is where you know they have a like fairly decent size basketball team that plays there. You know, like George Mason. It's like, you know, it's they're used to having 4,000 to 6,000 people come for a basketball game.
I think there's a big difference between a basketball game crowd and like a Taboo's show crowd. Like I don't know if people at a basketball game are going through that much beer.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends who you are. Depends who you go with.
Well, let's talk about the show here.
Yeah.
Starting with the Goose set, we get a nice 22-ish minute Arrow to open up the show. Solid jam, I would say. Arrow's been trending a little bit more above average this fall than it did in the first 2/3 of the year, but I still wouldn't say that this is particularly excellent. But there were some sections of it where they're hinting at going in different directions than we typically see in Arrow. More great vintage vibe playing from Peter. You can tell that he's really enjoying the sound of his new stereo console this tour. There's been a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought in the room. So my friend Patrick, who has been, fairly vocally unimpressed with Goose over the past, 3 years of me texting him about it. And for some reason, I just haven't stopped. But finally, he gave in and went to the show last night. And, it's literally been 3 years of him being like, I don't know, they sound like every jam band. But what he said, which I think was a good point, and it's a difference between listening and, or watching and being there in person, is that what he said is like they had real command of, there he is, real command of the arena, and I do think that's part of the whole point of this tour, which you guys have talked about. It's like, it does seem like they're kind of getting used to playing these bigger venues. And like that opener, They did a good job of just sort of like bringing the crowd in from the start and really like building the peaks, and the payoff at the end. I mean, it was really good. But yeah, I agree. It was longer than I thought, given the kind of, it wasn't like multi-dimensional, Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that Arrow does. And we talk a lot about that on the pod, which sometimes Arrow can go for a really long time and without just basically stay in that same lane. This one had a little bit of extra spice to it, like Ryan was saying. I think the vintage vibe parts were pretty neat, and there was I don't know, it was a little more electric this time than it has been, at the first 2/3 of the year, like you were saying, Ryan. And it was also surprisingly long, like you said, RJ. I think we were like in group chat last night, and I was like, wait a second, has this really been 22 minutes long when it was getting towards the end? And it was.
Yeah. It was really cool. Great opener, and I think brought the people along. I don't know. Is that
Brian?
What Ryan asked?
Yeah. That last night's Arrow and the All I Need that was with Trey. We're both kind of in that 22-minute range. Nothing else has quite hit that mark. The only thing I would add to the Arrow is, and I've seen this in a number of jams, but it got off to a really nice laid back start. The first few minutes of the jam I thought was probably my favorite part. You already mentioned the vintage vibe play. Rick was doing some nice kind of reverse echo. So yeah, I really liked that. And then it did ultimately kind of gear up into a nice up tempo. I think what we're all kind of calling a fairly standard Arrow jam, but yeah, it did have some juice to it. And yeah, I mean, solid version. And you hit it, Neil. I mean, or maybe you said this, Ryan, but yeah, the Arrows have been kind of trending, a little bit on the above average side, but it still feels like it's never quite hits it for us. I know in our group that's kind of been the theme. But and like we've said too, you got 90 minutes, so 22 of them is a big, it's a big commitment. So, and then, but anyway, and then, I guess Seekers after that, which, I think is in that pool of songs that maybe were kind of on the hump and we weren't quite sure, like, well, are we going to see that on this tour? Is that going to make the cut? So, so a little bit surprised for me to see Seekers, but it's a song that a lot of people love. And by the end of Seekers 2, I mean, you're feeling pretty good. So
what I'm curious about, RJ, is how Seekers translated in the room, because to me, just thinking about it, I feel like Seekers 1 maybe wouldn't translate that well to an arena setting, but Seekers 2 100% would.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I was telling Jonathan that they're called Seekers 1 and 2, but like it's just the same song. It's just long.
Yeah.
And I think but it's true that the first 3 or 4 minutes is sort of like, I think a lot of people were like, it was definitely like, it felt like a breather, Yeah. It felt like a little bit of a break, which was fine because it did pick back up.
Seekers 2, hey, it always.
Yeah. I mean,
Seekers,
I think I love it. I love the song. I just call it one song. Sorry. It's just a song.
That's fair.
Seekers 2 is number 1. I mean, it's, don't let the numbers fool you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got that big peak in it, the big dramatic guitar swells that it makes Seekers 1 worth it. So there you go.
I told Jonathan it's like Fluffhead and Fluff's Travels.
Yeah, interesting.
That's kind of the way I see it, but I don't know. Maybe it's more complicated than that.
Interesting. And then we get Thatch making another appearance, coming back quickly. Very happy to see this one again. Very, very happy. Oh, he's here. Hello?
Hey.
Yes. There he is.
So the semi-professional podcaster can't get his computer to join a podcast tonight. So sorry I'm late.
It's okay. Hi.
Hi.
Right off the bat, your percentage of being sold on Goose after last night?
83.6.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Where were you before last night?
We don't have to talk about that.
Okay, all right. So,
that sounds good.
It was above 50 for sure. I like the band. I like Goose. Let's just walking in the door. I didn't dislike Goose. Still don't dislike Goose. They're a cool band. I enjoyed what I saw. Production on this tour is great. So first of all, they put on a good show, and they have good guests. At least on this tour. So what's not to like, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Jonathan, just to go back to the Arrow opener, we just talked about that, but you were, that was what 20 some minutes. And then the Seekers, we were just talking about the Seekers part 1 and part 2, and I told you that it was sort of like Fluffhead and Fluff's Travels. It just goes together. It's sort of like one song.
Yeah. It's funny, but you also said that nobody can tell them apart, and I'm like,
I know that might have been an exaggeration because these guys can tell you where they start and end. I was sort of I was trying to exaggerate it a little for you.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you had me fooled until I was like, oh, I bet this is the beginning of part 2. I liked Arrow opener. Just to keep it quick because you already covered it. That was big, and I think that's a great way to start a show, especially when they've got to expect they've got a more than a handful of complete noobs in the room, right? Mm-hmm. So let's come out and throw something big on all of those folks, and they did that, and I loved it. And I was pretty into what was happening at the time, and I like Seekers too.
Awesome. So for what it's worth, every time I do a live set list, if I'm doing it from like the pod account, I get question myself as to where Seekers 2 begins. So you guys aren't alone.
Really?
Like I always get a little bit nervous. Okay. You're like, is this am I going to get this wrong?
This is the guy that's winning Fantasy Goose with this opinion?
It's just like a weird little I'm putting this out into the universe anxiety. You just want to get it right.
I bet Nate knows where Seekers 2 starts.
Yeah, sure. Nate is my brother.
But it's because they don't play them apart. So why?
Twice.
I mean, but okay. All right. I wasn't trying to be literal. I meant
yes. Sorry.
I meant in general. In general, they play them together.
Yeah.
All right. I'm done. That's all.
We were just starting to talk about Thatch. Jonathan, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this song. So Thatch was debuted just on Sunday in Glens Falls. This last time was the second time played ever.
It's funny.
And they said on Sunday that it was 2 days old. So happy 1 week birthday to Thatch.
That venue is where I saw my first Fish show 28 years ago. And that night, Fish played a song for the second time. So keeping up that very, very specific streak is something I'm really proud to do. I like Fetch. That was cool. RJ pointed it out to me at the time. And I was like, okay, new. I mean, I would not have known it was new.
Right.
I had no way of knowing. And it seemed pretty reasonably well lived in by the band at the time. So, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought it was cool. It's progressing. I mean, I think it'll turn into a bigger song, right? You guys think so?
Yeah, that's a thing we've talked about a bunch. I think when I first heard it the first time, I wasn't really sold on it right away. And then I listened to it the next day and I was like, I can see this song going really big. And then the version that they played last night definitely seems a little bit more comfortable with it this time, even still. And like, it's like Jonathan said, it feels pretty lived in already. So I see this kind of going somewhere big if it's a week old and they're already so comfortable with the song. So, when they get off this tour, I'm excited to see where they take it and maybe drop a 20-minute version on us. Who knows?
Goose Miss Thatch. It's going to be good.
I'm ready for it. It's definitely coming at Goosemas. No doubt.
It's happening.
Mark it down.
I thought that was but it was like between Seekers and Thatch. I think it was a little bit like people were kind of like, where are the bangers, Yeah, I think that was, and then you got,
Then we got the banger.
Yeah, we got the, my friend Patrick, who I think was watching, he asked me a couple weeks ago because two of his friends were going to see one of the previous shows, and he was like, "What's Goose's You Enjoy Myself?" And I was like, "Well, there isn't really one, but Arcadia is the most played and like the most well known song. So like that, I guess that's what I would say." And then when it started, then he was like, "So this is the Goose Yum?" And I was like, "Not really, not in any other sense, really."
Bad analogy.
Yeah, where's the 7 minutes of intricately composed music?
Yeah, you're just not gonna get it.
It's so sometimes it is a little funny because on the and I don't want to get any grief for this, but on the Fish fan side, where a lot of the hate comes, you know what I mean? It's like, too much like Fish and this Fish and that Fish. But then, and then people start to get a little bit interested, and their first question is, well, what's their yam?
Yeah.
It's like, well.
So can I talk about this? I had some thoughts about this earlier, and I don't remember, we did a podcast after Trey sat in and talked with a couple of you guys then, and the first time at Radio City, and I don't remember what I talked about then, but I was thinking today about this, Fish Goose thing, and people, I talked to somebody walking out of the show last night, and he's like, "Yeah, it sounded a little bit like Fish." I'm like, no, not really.
It doesn't.
Right. So thank you for the backup there. To me, and I was texting with a friend this morning that they sound more like a 21st century indie band, whatever that is, that jams. And surely Fish is in 100%. Their back pocket as something they've listened to and respect, possibly inform some of their jamming, but I don't really think they sound like Fish in any way. So let's not to disrespect Fish. I would never, but let's, put that behind us, people. A band doesn't have to sound like Fish to interest people who like Fish, or it shouldn't. And if it does, then you're out of luck, because there is no band that really sounds like Fish that's worth your time except for Fish.
And if they do sound a little bit like Fish, a little bit of the time, that's okay.
Of course.
Yep.
And it's probably attributable to shared influences, or again, they are a little bit influenced by Fish, but I mean, there is no Yem.
Yeah.
If you want Yem, there's a whole other band that plays that.
And you said when you described it as like the 21st century kind of Indian things like that, that there seems to be a movement now on this indie groove label that seems to have really caught on. And perhaps that's one of the better monikers for their sound. I've got no problem with that one.
A lot of the bands that wear that moniker are less song oriented. than Goose is. I mean, they're writing songs.
Yeah.
Like good
Yeah,
songs.
I think that was like maybe 6 months ago that I tweeted that Goose sounds way more like Vampire Weekend than Fish, and I got like a lot of. I mean, it was
That's
it was
a conversation starter.
partially just to see what happened, but got a lot of shit from people. But I think you're right, Jonathan. It's about this. It's about the songs. Like the band is about this. I think they can jam, but I don't think that's what makes them so unique to me.
100%.
For sure. I mean, we talked about it just the last time we recorded when they did This Old Sea, and like that song, standalone, jamming aside, is an incredible piece of music. And, we talk about it on the pod every once in a while. When they play something like AEIOU, when they cover that, that's nobody's showing up to hear like any kind of guitar solo or anything in that song. It is purely to hear Rick sing that song, and he does it so well. And the band is just so good at executing songs well. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of the band.
Yeah. So now let's talk about this big jam.
I was gonna say, yeah.
This
now
Arcadia.
that we've talked about their songwriting,
Yeah.
I would like to take a moment to call Peter out for finally using his Prophet synth this tour, because it's kind of been sitting there for most of the shows. Most of his synthesizer playing has been taking place on the Nord behind him. So I was very happy to hear him hit it during this jam, and just the way he was, kind of subtly laying in textures underneath what the rest of the band was doing was just so perfect. And listening back to it this morning, I was just like, yeah, like this is amazing. This is probably my pick for Arcadia of the year so far. The song hasn't had, a year like it did in 2021 for sure. But, this is, I think, at the top of the pile. It was excellent.
Jonathan's out. That's all. He said his thing. He's gone.
Yeah. I don't agree with Ryan's take either, but I'm not leaving. So
I do that.
I know you like the Nashville one.
I hadn't thought about that. How long was it? I mean, not that it matters.
17.
Not that it matters. 17. Okay. All right. Yeah. I thought it was really fun. I mean, I felt like a little more self-conscious at the show last night because I was in between Patrick and Jonathan, my two friends who I knew were like seeing Goose for the first time. So it's sort of like vicariously interpreting the show through them. You know what I mean? So like, it's interesting watching a show like that as opposed to Pittsburgh, where I was just sort of like by myself and in my own world. But I thought it's interesting how much of a like if you take yourself out of the having heard this song a lot, it's like such a if you played a jam band like jam for someone, like this would be it. Like the bouncy groove and the like, it's kind of like got that really like stereotypical jam band sound, but the jam is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
okay. Sorry, Neil. So this was another one for me. It started out with a really nice laid back section. And really probably about the first half of this jam was really cool and kind of unique in that way. And then, about 12 minutes or so, they fired up all cylinders and it really started to take off. You're right to call this one out, this song out, because they're not going to miss with it. You know what I mean? So that's why every time they, Peter fires up, that opening kind of background organ, it's coming. This is why the excitement in the room kind of immediately builds, because everybody knows that they're in for a huge treat. There's never any question. And it's one of those songs too, where, it's not like Arrow where it's okay, well, let's see where it goes. It may hit, it might not. With Arcadia, it's going to hit, and you don't care if it goes 20 minutes. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, this was a really awesome version and was the highlight of the set for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one is really, really good. I think I do agree with Ryan. This might be my favorite Arcadia from this year so far. And it is, pretty great jam. And I think my favorite part is also what Ryan's favorite part was nobody was really ripping it up at any given point when this happened, but Peter was just making excellent music with the synth. It just sounded perfect. And it was just so tasteful what he was doing. Because I feel like things can really go off the rails with synth players, and it can get real annoying real fast. And
I've got some records for you.
Yeah, no doubt. And so he was just kind of sneaking in there, and it sounded really good. And then also, I mean, we say this a lot, but Trevor, every once in a while can really surprise you. And he kind of laid it on thick in the groove here, but every once in a while he would do something that made you kind of go, ooh, like that was really cool. And that kind of bass playing, I think, is my favorite bass playing. Guys who just go up and play like 1,000 notes and kind of stand at the front of the band are cool, and I enjoy them. But I also like this style of bass playing as well, where it's just, you don't really notice them. And then when you do, you're really, really excited by it. Yeah. And I think there was a lot of that in this particular jam.
Yeah. I was thinking about
probably
that.
Listen to Trevor more.
You listen to Trevor more, probably.
Yeah,
that's what I got.
He was about to say something. I think really
something complimentary of Trevor.
Yeah, really genuine and from the heart. So he'll be back.
We can all picture what Jonathan was about to say there. But yeah, and obviously we talked about this a bit in our group chat this morning. But shout out to Spuds, for really kicking it. Pedal to the metal, foot to the floor at around that 12-minute mark, like you said, Brian. Just incredible, and the way they kind of crashed into the ending progression at that speed was incredible. And then Spuds perfectly brought it down into still faster than normal, but it's normal cadence of the ending. But it was very well executed, very well landed, phenomenal.
Yeah. No slow Arcadia ending last night. Like we've been seeing, which are awesome. But
I like
right,
the
Ryan.
unpredictability. You might get it, you might not. Yeah. And then and then they bring Trey out, and we get Hunger Sight Tumble, which very solid jamming last night. Nothing crazy. Trey, as I tweeted it last night, but I could hear Trey hit the first few notes of that Hunger Sight guitar solo over and over and over again, like forever.
I think Rick could too.
Yeah.
I got in a conversation on one of these newer alternate social media sites today, and somebody said, not sure I've seen Rick so animated during a set. And I was like, I thought he was pretty stoic and probably focused. I mean, I'm no expert on Rick, so we used to cheer when Jerry would kick his legs. So what do I know? But when Trey plays that beginning of that solo, his grin is unmistakable. I think I commented to you, RJ. He was animated. He was really into it, and it does. I can still hear it in my brain right now. It's kind of a great sound.
Yeah, you said he was almost smiling.
He was like, you could tell there was he was a little crack from his cool focus that I think I saw most of the night.
It's getting a little more loose up there, I think.
Crazy.
That's what it feels like as this goes on. I'm really curious about tonight, just because of with the storm and the weather. I wonder if it's going to be probably the show of the tour, Ryan.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I was telling Ryan earlier.
Because of the snow and me not being able to make it, tonight is the only show that there are no members of people on this podcast that we're doing here.
Wow.
Attendance.
Oh, the streak is broken. Yeah.
You're letting us down, Ryan.
I know. I should have braved the weather.
I told Ryan earlier that, we're probably going to get Trey's going to sit in for the entire Goose set, and they're probably going to do Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
To a half full arena.
Dark Side of the Moon and Moby.
Yeah. But, it's probably going to happen.
No, it's not going to be Dark Star. God, guys need to aim high.
I know. God.
That would be something.
Jonathan? What else did you notice in the collaborations? Because we've talked a lot, and most of us have seen some of this live. What were your takeaways just doing during that collab?
Well, I watched Trey at the Radio City thing, and I feel like he kind of knew Hunger Sight, and he was excited and engaged. But watching him last night, I think he knew the material, he knew the songs, and he was not just playing riffs along with Rick, he was harmonizing them. Yeah. Saw that a lot during the jams too, where they, in exchanging licks and whatnot, one of them would land on something, the other would harmonize in a different place in the neck, and and then we got the three parts, but I'm getting ahead of us. So yeah, I think that Trey's invested in the material when he's up there with them, and I which is just got to be absolutely thrilling to the band. The whole experience is probably amazing, but then to see how invested and into it Trey is when he's up there. They converse well too, musically, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I've actually had a running little playlist of all of the Trey sit-ins on my nugs, and just happy to keep adding more every show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's been the theme of this tour from the start, is that Trey has clearly, worked on these songs, and whether he's doing that just for a couple hours that day or what, I don't know. It could be as simple as that, but yeah, he's clearly coming out. Unlike Radio City, where I think his sit-in was perhaps longer than expected, and so he wasn't maybe prepared for some of those songs, still crushed it. On this tour, he's been prepared for these songs. Now, that all said, the Tumble, I'm not 100% sold that he had that one down all the way. And Tumble, has kind of the composed bits at the beginning. And so, it kind of sounded like Trey was latching on every round of notes from Rick, where he could kind of hear where it was going and things like that, but wasn't completely on that. So I thought that was an interesting song for them to bring him out for. And that was something that I was thinking about earlier this week, is, well, what songs might be easier than others, or maybe more complex in the sense that, is he going to have the time to sit down and can pick up every note of this, right? So, but I will go back and say also that the music that they made together during the jam in that Tumble was phenomenal. And yeah, like you said, Jonathan, a lot of harmonizing. We've been singing that a lot. We even made a comment, or I made a comment one day, that maybe it was kind of starting to sound a little bit, repetitive by like night 4. I haven't noticed that as much, or that hasn't come to my mind as much. And I felt like that jam in Tumble last night was really hot, and it felt, unique and different. So.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty different too, for sure, from what I was expecting.
Can't say I had a lot of expectations or knew what I was hearing going into it. I've heard Tumble before, but I couldn't sing it back to you. But I felt like Trey knew it better than I did.
He probably has heard it more than you have.
Yeah. We've got to figure that they're, doing practice room work most nights, right? Mm-hmm. Not just sound check work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, Ryan and I ran into a member of the crew in Mohegan. I've mentioned it a couple times now, but I keep bringing it up. But she was saying they were practicing together a lot, which is actually counter to what Greg was saying. Greg was saying the other day that they hadn't practiced that much together, but I think now that they're on tour together, I think they're hanging out every day and doing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat, talking about this, and I think we should go ahead and talk about the tab set, and the Billy Strings.
I have some questions.
I think Jonathan is very excited to talk about
and I want Jonathan to talk about it. But I have some observations from that sit-in. But let's go. Is there anything within the tab set that we need to talk about? It was a fun tab set.
First Tube doesn't usually show up in the opener slot for tab. Fish, does it semi-frequently, but I think it's usually set closer or encore for tab. So I was excited about that.
It's better in the opener. It's too predictable as a closer.
Yeah.
There, I said it.
We are confused. We're confused about what kind of podcast this is, but the people in the chat, which we appreciate you guys commenting, it's not a Goose podcast, it's a Fish podcast.
It's a Taboose podcast.
It's a Goose podcast.
Yeah, it is.
What is it?
Depends what platform you're watching on.
What is it? Good point. Fair enough.
Collaboration.
I took exactly one video last night, and it was during that About to Run, which was just so. I love that. I love that song. I love that the horns and it's just the four piece going all in on that. That was really fun.
Do you remember what I said to you after that song, RJ? I do, so you don't have to. It was.
Did you say I'm about to run?
No, I said that this, as in what we had just heard, is exactly what I imagined that song should be after the first time I heard it, which was at the anthem during the Ghost of the Forest tour.
Yes, you did say that.
It is a moody shredder and a perfect example of it right there. But otherwise, I felt like the set was a standard, outstanding tab set. Tab has been nothing but great in the past, since last year when they were back after COVID.
Which, we've been talking about that bit on these recaps, how it's, it's become that standard outstanding tab set, which, watching this many in a row is a lot. Especially, it's interesting that they're not dipping into, some of the other corners of their catalog, given the fact that it's an 8-night run that's being webcast, which, tab isn't usually. We haven't seen Quantigy, stuff like Windora Bug, maybe a lot of tab songs out there that they're not playing. But, I also would love to hear an I Never Left Home pop up in either tonight or tomorrow. That's a really, really great song from Trey's Quarantine album. But yeah, it's interesting to me, the song selection that they're going with.
No Plasma yet, right?
No Plasma either. No, the
That's
way
weird.
I feel. Only one spin. No,
yeah, I was actually thinking about Plasma last night. I've been thinking about Plasma a lot for some reason. I just feel like it's gotta make an appearance.
I was hoping maybe to see Rick and Peter come out for that.
Yeah,
Ooh.
It could happen.
That'd be nice.
Maybe they need a reminder.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they're watching.
Yeah.
So the Billy sit-in is funny because for those who don't know, friend of the pod, Noah Ray posted a fabricated photo of some road cases with the Billy Strings logo on it.
Well, hold on, it was scientifically proven.
I was calling this sit-in months ago. Like after I had tickets for both shows.
As soon as the tour was announced, everyone was like, "Oh, Billy's day off in Fairfax. He's going to be there."
But that was a photoshopped picture, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
shout out to Lucas Anderton who did the Photoshop job on that.
If you look at it, there was like half of a gate that was open and a bike leaning against the gate, and then all of Billy's stuff next to the open gate with the bike laying next to it. It was like, I think that's really how.
And also,
that's how they leave their stuff.
And also, there's no reason for Billy to have that much stuff for a sit-in.
I mean, for what it's worth, when Trey was doing the Radio City sit-in, and I happened upon his stuff being basically in the middle of the street in Manhattan, it almost didn't seem real.
Yeah,
it seemed completely fake to me. Like
people definitely thought it was fake, right?
I thought it was fake. I was staying at the Marriott across the street. And the guy
posted it anyway.
Came through the front door, and he's like, "Hey, there's a guy on the street with all of Trey's stuff." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "There's a guy with all of Trey's guitars." And I walk outside, and I saw it, and I was like, "This can't be real." Like it was literally across the street from the venue, so they had to push this stuff across the street in Manhattan. So like, when I first saw that picture, I was like, this is reasonably believable. I don't know. I mean, Trey left his stuff in the middle of the road in Manhattan, but Then you zoomed in and it was like blatantly fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
But
Well,
props to Lucas for not using a photo that had his stuff across the street. Because
Right. Yeah.
that's-
Yeah. Keep it going a little bit. Before we go, I just want to just a little bit of trivia here from Toph B. Pretty sure Osiris was created by Tom Marshall, the lyricist of Fish. That is true, and co-founded by Tom Marshall and co-founded by me. All right, sorry.
Don't you forget it, Toph B.
Yeah. So RJ, I think, can tell us what this podcast is. He also created HF Pod. So
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about shit. I'm just here to
Podfather.
laugh with you guys.
Can I say I went to the Billy Strings show on Wednesday night?
Yeah.
It was an outdoor show. It was cold.
Yeah.
It was great. And I knew that I was going to this thing last night, and I was optimistic and hopeful because, again, Billy had the night off. He's playing the Anthem in DC tonight, which, aren't you going to that, RJ? And no, you're not going to. Other people are going to that, I'm sure, because it is probably very sold out. But, we knew it was a possibility. Had a great time.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted when I went to the show last night already. And then we heard that he had actually sound checked. So, we had seen the fake picture, and then we heard the tangible rumors on the ground, and we just knew it had to be real. Mm-hmm. We waited, and then they didn't open the doors. You guys all pick up on that? Was that all over the Twitters? Because I was off my phone. So we're standing at the doors at 6:00, and there's a sound check still going on, a late sound check. So went and secured our good seats so we would be able to see Billy, and sure enough.
And could you?
Oh yeah. We were close.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was wild. I mean, I guess so. I just have to ask because we're on the 41-minute mark, so we've been talking for a while. But I got to ask Jonathan, the acoustic sit-in, which was what I guess 1 or 3 songs, and then there was some Trey and Billy, right? And then once the Goose guys came out for Moma Dance, Jabu, and then they came back out for Carini. Do you and back on the train? It seemed to me like the vibe was weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like fun and exciting, but it felt a little bit. Maybe it's just because it was so chaotic. I mean, there's so many people up there already, and then you add like another very loud and assertive guitar in there, and it's just sort of like it becomes like chaotic. But I just felt like Billy was not really giving a shit about like Trey kind of like would give him like tell him to solo, and then he would be like trying to bring it back to the song, and then Billy would just like keep soloing for like another 32 bars or whatever, which is fine. But did you feel that at all, or was that in my head?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that assessment. I was watching pretty closely and sober and focused and listening, and Trey, just as with Tab with no guests, Trey was running that stage, and he was giving everybody the nod, encouraging them to keep going, looking over and watching, cheering. One of the things I absolutely love is that when somebody in his band takes a solo and it rips, Trey is as excited as I am. He's like, so great. And he was doing that for Billy. He was doing that for Rick. I feel like he forgot that Peter was out there. So at one point, was it Get Back on the Train when Peter took a solo on the organ? Trey was like, "Oh, look who's over here!"
Yeah,
excited and surprised by that. I don't know if it came off to you guys at home, but that's how I saw that. And it was a lot. It was a lot of traffic control once you had 3 guitars on the stage and such. But I feel like obviously they chose material that they wouldn't have chosen if Billy Strings hadn't been there. And so it took away from opportunities for the Goose Tab interaction. Yeah. And if you're solely there for that, I could see that being disappointing or what have you. I get that. But I think we ended up with a unique and special night of music.
Mm-hmm. What was interesting to me, I kind of agree with RJ on that. It was kind of a weird vibe, and Billy, didn't really seem to be as like, into like, collaborating, which it is interesting to me because, Billy obviously is much more used to playing acoustic guitar than he is electric, and he doesn't generally play in bands with other electric guitar players very much. And so it sounded to me like, we've seen on this tour every jam that Rick and Trey have done together, like they're spot on with the harmonizations. They're in it. They're like, making eye contact the whole time. My dad had a good observation, when they're all on stage, Billy's looking down at his guitar while he's playing, even when he's trying to play off Trey. When Rick and Trey are playing off each other, they're looking at each other. And so it felt to me, the few times that Billy tried to do the harmonization with Trey, that he maybe missed the mark a little bit, and it sounded a little bit sour. I think the acoustic songs with Billy were great. I'm not a big bluegrass guy.
Nobody's perfect.
I like drums. But I liked Meet Me at the Creek. The Twee Prize Tease was fun. But I thought the electric, maybe was a bit much.
I think what Scotty King said, sorry, just with the comment I had up here, I think that this was, I guess, one of the main things that I saw. It was like Billy and Rick were kind of, because Trey was conducting, right? So it wasn't like they were really engaging each other directly. It was just sort of a little bit, it was interesting. I don't know. I think Rick got, drowned it out a little bit. That's what I felt at the time.
I did feel like that was a missed opportunity to get more of those two guys interacting, more of them. We had a couple bits. What was it in the MoMA dance? There was this pretty cool bit where all three of them were peaking, on the guitar riffs pretty hard. Maybe there was another bit in Back on the Train, but by and large, it was a lot of passing around the conch, if you will, and just passing the lead around the room, and then Trey engaging whoever had it.
And I got to say, can I just say one more thing? Sorry, Brian.
No.
Jonathan and I I think I first saw Billy Strings in 2016 or 2017 at the Festi. Like I've seen him a lot over the years, and he's awesome. But that guy on the electric guitar is fucking outrageous. And it's not just like he was playing some like jazz kind of chords in there in the MoMA dance and the Carini. Like it wasn't just like the acoustic picking translated to electric. Like he was playing some complicated and really beautiful guitar. I mean, it was, he's awesome.
I recommend people go and listen to the Billy and the Kids stuff from back New Year's.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
So like, it's true, he doesn't play electric guitar professionally every night like Rick, but he's got some chops. And I think this could have been better, but I absolutely thought it was terrific, and I want more of it. And I wish the Carini had lasted another 15 to 20 minutes.
I think that's fair. I was struck by like just how creative Billy was in some of those. In the MoMA dance, there was a point where they were kind of doing the twin lead thing, and then Billy kind of picked it right up and then basically just started playing Allman Brothers riffs, which I thought was like hilarious. Like he heard it and he thought the same thing that we all think, which is like, wow, this kind of sounds like the Allman Brothers. And he was just like, fuck it, I'm going to play some Allman Brothers. And then there it was. So I thought that was pretty cool part of the set.
Yeah, Billy's representing that voice. It's just like when Trey had him, trade vocals on Back on the Train, because when Billy took the second verse at Back on the Train, as soon as the first words came out of his mouth, Trey is laughing because he's nailing the way that sounds, I think.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, Jonathan, RJ, did you notice any? So you talked about the musical kind of interactions or lack thereof, maybe between Rick and Billy. But did you notice, after they were done playing and as they were walking on and off stage, that there's from my vantage point on the couch, there also seemed to be a conspicuous lack of interaction there as well. There were a lot of hugs flying around, between Trey and everyone, but I don't think I ever saw Billy and Rick, fist bump, high five, hug. Did the cameras miss it, or did you guys notice that?
I didn't see it, but I wouldn't read too much into it. I know when he was done, Billy was, grappling with unplugging and dripping his wires off. Rick, was finishing up, and he went off around the keyboards, whereas Billy's exit was around the horn side, and but they all end up in the same place in the back, and I'm sure it was fine.
Yeah, but I did notice that. I mean, I think Billy Strings is he's like a solo rock star. Like, he has a band, obviously, but he's he's playing these sold out shows in huge venues. He's and I think he's got, Jonathan's talked to him and we've interviewed him before. I mean, he's got a vibe. He's got a thing, he's almost like a larger than life sort of personality. He's got this charisma and personality thing. And I do wonder if he's just so big now that he's just in his own world. You know what I mean? I do wonder about the backstage hangs, and we should try to ask what that's like at some point from people in and around the band. But I definitely felt that, and I'm curious if he's in his own world now because he's so big.
Well, my question about the backstage hangs was Billy going to have to go out to the loading dock to smoke a joint? Because he'll do
whatever the rest of Goose has been doing the whole tour.
Right.
Yeah, Jeb usually has his own room.
He does.
He does have his own
because,
room.
Trey has his, own sort of isolation protocols, but he's going to hang with Goose. And surely he was hanging. I imagine that the Goose set involved a lot of rehearsal backstage with Trey and Billy. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then they're they've played together before.
Exactly. We don't know.
They definitely they're the two biggest acts in this broader scene at this point, and they have played at festivals, and I mean, obviously they have a lot of respect for each other, and I'm sure they're friendly. But it is interesting because I think the humility of Trey and of Goose this whole tour has been notable to me. You know what I mean? And that's part of the thing about the playing. Rick and Trey are so deferential to each other when they're playing. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're overly respectful of each other's place. And I think that's the thing. When Billy was just shredding, he was obviously he was listening. It wasn't like he was in his own world playing, but I think there was a little bit more of just fuck it, I'm jamming. Than when Trey and Rick are kind of very closely watching each other and reacting to each other, but also throwing a third wheel in there. I was saying earlier to friends, it's like when my wife invites two couples over for a dinner party, and I'm like, well, why don't we invite 3 more couples? It'll be fun. And it usually is.
The
fun,
dynamic is sometimes
it's
not
different,
right.
And it's chaotic. And then someone gets super drunk and falls, and it's you throw a third thing in there.
A third almond.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
This is Patrick is a good
RJ
point.
Needs
Maybe
to use the handrails.
Maybe they're only enjoying Sunset Lake CBD backstage.
Highly recommended.
Use the code HFPod for 20% off your offer.
There you go. And if you're into mushrooms, check out Versio Wellness. Code StormSound15. Well, we got 2 shows left. It's crazy.
Sad. It's I was saying this the last time we recorded. I just the thought of it ending kind of bums me out, but I'm so grateful for all this music. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It can't last forever.
Right.
But wow, what a gift.
And any predictions for these last 2 nights?
Rockdale with Trey, Madhavan with Trey.
Yeah. I hope the Rockdale is tomorrow, but it's probably going to be tonight.
Bob Don. Oh wait, sorry. Wait. Neil hasn't put in his fantasy picks yet, so we need to refrain from.
Don't give him the answers.
Speculation.
I've just been consistently winning. Don't worry about me, Ryan.
40 seconds.
Oh man.
No jives yet. No Rosewood yet. So,
Jonathan, what was your overall takeaway from that show? If you had to summarize it in a couple sentences.
I would see it again. I think it was really good, and I won't even make a prediction. More of a wish list than a prediction. Is I want them to close tonight with Half Step with Trey. There you go.
Yes, please.
It's great.
Yes.
Would be so great. I do wonder about. I think we talked about that, right? Like whether Trey is going to not want to do a Dead song, but I think
Trey's game.
They should do it.
Will they?
I was wondering if they were going to do a Hornsby song with Trey.
I would love the way it is with Trey. That'd be cool.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Everyone who's commenting, thank you all. I hope we did this show justice. There were 5 of us. We threw in a third heavy hitter here, and it all kind of the wheels came off once Jonathan joined.
Yeah, sorry about
got rowdy
technology problems and interruptedness.
That was awesome.
Listen, you know what? You're now most of the way sold. Now we'll get you to your next show and on the road to 100.
I gotta say, I'm looking forward to 2 sets of Goose soon.
Yes,
us as well.
I'm a little bit surprised by you go to these shows and like last night, Jonathan, I think when Goose started, it was probably half full, right? And then
no, it was more than that.
3/4. But then like people are going to see Tab, I mean, not everyone, but like a lot of people are like coming in a third of the way into the Goose set. And then, I wouldn't miss don't miss the Goose set.
I don't think people are missing the Goose set. I mean, you're discounting a little bit of beer line situation, and but surely it's
general lateness.
Acknowledge that this a full or mid-size arena tour is happening and working because it's both the bands on the bill. So of course, there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's people who aren't hardcore new Goose fans showing up. They're noobs to the first band, and and then you always have your stragglers, people who are incapable of arriving on time for a concert.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
There we go.
There it is.
We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. You know the drill, talking about Syracuse tonight, the Dark Side of the Moon that's going to get played. I am curious to see how full the venue is tonight, given the fact that, we're seeing more and more tickets popping up, people unable to go because of the incredible amount of snow in Buffalo. Very sad. I won't be there. But
drive safe.
Yes, if anybody is still on their way, and hopefully everybody in Buffalo is doing well. Hopefully your power stays on so you can webcast. We'll still be tweeting. Twitter still exists, so
now
we'll be there.
I will say, guys, I wonder about Syracuse and Reading, and I'm going to Reading tomorrow. But I think around in the section where I was last night and in Pittsburgh, I would say that like 75% of the people who I talked to, it was their first Goose show.
Oh yeah,
small sample size. I don't know if you guys saw that in the earlier shows, Ryan or Neil, but it definitely I think they're getting a lot of new exposure and probably a lot of new fans out of this, which is awesome.
Psyched for it.
Yeah.
All right.
We good? I think.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do it.
Osiris.